Did you know that the price of gold, or at least the GLD ETF, has actually outperformed the S&P 500 for the past 3 years? Now, some of you guys that are a bit more in tune with the markets near term, you may say, okay, that's not a great surprise. Gold's had a big rally year to date. Nonetheless, think about the big moves that the S&P 500 has had over the past 3 years. So from that perspective, the fact that gold's actually marginally outperforming the S&P, I think should still be quite notable to most people. Of course, what does that mean going forward? We do think gold's going to do very well going forward. We have a lot of reasons to be bullish gold, from the interesting reasons that gold's actually going higher now, which is not the usual thing we see when interest rates go higher. Real interest rates go higher, gold tends to not do so well. So gold's holding up in the face of very stiff winds, to be quite frank, which makes us like this. However, this video here is not so much about gold in terms of its performance, but also letting you know that from an asset allocation perspective, something that's holding up this well versus something like the S&P, which is doing very well as well, that relative strength, I think, is quite telling. And so, there's many ways of looking at this, but for example, if we were to do a chart that ratios gold versus the S&P 500, and we were to make this a bit of a zoomed out chart on a weekly basis, you can see that even though gold hasn't really broken higher in a ratio versus the S&P 500, it certainly is trying to, with a notable higher low in February versus the lows in 2022. So I think we're getting there. Now, what I really like about the setup here in gold, the fact that it's performing so well versus the S&P, is that at this point, it also allows us to an opportunity to generate income from gold, specifically the GLD ETF. Gold is known as something that just doesn't generate an income, and that's annoying to some investors, myself including. And even though that's not really its purpose, it's really more to protect us from our purchasing power eroding, we can actually generate an income from gold. And we can do that using something called the covered call, or even something called a double income strategy, which I really like. If you guys like the idea of gold, if you like the idea of as a potential asset allocation, I'm not a gold bug by no means, but as a diversification thing, as an allocation, and then maybe generating gold income, so income on GLD, we'd love to show you how we like to do that. We're doing a special presentation this week on that. You can find out more about it down below here somewhere or on the next screen.